Good day, everyone. I'm Joel Searles here with Tip Cullen and Dan Shepard from the Sunray film. They're British Royal Marine Commandos. They were guests here on We Are the Mighty and the Samurai Pulse years back, telling us about the initial filming of it. Now it's been completed. It's being released here later this month, and it's a great film. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing well. What do you reckon, Don? We just had the premiere in Leicester Square 2 days ago, and I'm still buzzing. How are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. Absolutely buzzing. A great reception at the premiere last night. Oh, well, a couple of nights ago, and yeah, it's been a long road, but we're here. And thanks for having us on today, Joe.
Absolutely. It's great to see you guys, and I really respect the perseverance and the push to get it released and everything. Um, What can you tell me further about how this process has went now that it's been filmed and you've edited it? Can either of you touch on, some of that and, what it's like being a veteran and stepping into this creative role of piecing together your project?
Yeah, I think from a production point of view, it's been a long road, like we just said, and I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we are first time filmmakers on the filmmaking side doing something like this. We make films for a living, outside of doing this, but creating a narrative feature film. This is the first time we've ever done anything like that, and we were on a shoestring budget. It's the very definition of an indie film. So, but we packed in a lot of action and a lot of story into a reasonable runtime as well. So there was a lot to do, a lot of editing, post production. We were learning a lot about the things that we had captured. You know what had gone right, what had gone wrong as is part of the process. So there were a couple of pickups, but not too many. Was there, Tip? We did okay. And then
Well, no, I'll speak about the pickups afterwards. But again, I think that's part of the not the saga, but the storytelling, because it's just a true indie wonder. It was part of the fun as well, really.
Yeah, exactly that. It was all part of it. We would come call a Tip, and like I said, he'll talk about this in a bit, I'm sure, and just say, "Oh, are you available? We're just going to shoot some pickups," and it was literally like in an office or in someone's house, putting some lights up and catching some extra shots that we needed as inserts and things like that. So yeah, there was all that to deal with, and then we learned a lot about film distribution through this process. That's kind of the hidden part that we didn't know a lot about. Again, we've been making films for a while, but they're primarily for a more commercial reason, or for we made films that have been used for the military and things like that. So this was a new breaking new ground for us and learning how all that works. And there was challenges there because we're unknowns. It's like, who are these guys who just made a film and who do they think they are trying to get it sold? But thankfully, we've met some incredible people on the way that have really, taken a punt with us, and got behind the film. I think they saw what we had done, and they just, they loved the concept. They thought the execution was good, so they put their trust in us, and we managed to come to some really really amazing deals. I've ended up with a international release, so the film is going to be UK, US, and there's a lot of other territories as well that we've got. So we're incredibly happy with that, but that has taken a long time. Going through that process again, especially from coming from where we did. It's just been a lot of meetings, a long time figuring all these things out, and where's it going to go, who's going to take it. So yeah, that was the new thing for us, and the slightly less exciting part of it in many ways. But now that we're here, we're back to excitement again. Seeing it all finally come together, seeing everyone again at the premiere, and awaiting the release of the film more broadly at the end of this week.
Yes, absolutely. Congrats on getting the international release. I think that's fantastic, and you found the right people to, move the ball forward with your film. I was, very much taken by the action sequences. It's pretty apparent you guys have seen some of these things and trained for some of these missions. And I don't know if it was a creative choice you made, but or the cinematographer. But I noticed in the film, it reminded me of Michael Mann's work, especially with there was a shot where the car was going down the street and the camera was on the hood and the lights were going across the hood of the car, which is, Michael Mann. He was in Thief. It was in Miami Vice. I'm pretty sure it was in Collateral. Just about any Heat. It's a beautiful shot. You may have just done that yourselves, but it has a lot of undertones of that noir action sense to it, and the gunfights are, I mean, they're 10 out of 10. So just some thoughts. I don't care if if you want to share about the inspirations for the film, great. If not, that's okay too. But there's some really well done pieces there and some very strong emotions throughout it. Tip, can you talk about, leading this film? To my knowledge, it's your first lead film, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been because like I say, we talk about the endurance test that we've done with it, and what Dan and James and the collective team have put together and endured. It's phenomenal. And in that time, like from when we first were talking about it, I'd only graduated, literally from actor training about a couple of years or a year
Mm,
and a half. And at that point, then we just landed on in COVID, and I think the whole world just went backwards for quite a bit. And
it did.
as a performer, and you got exactly the same, Joel, in the stateside, that sort of just cut off a lifeline for creatives, and especially actors, because we're person, and I know AI is taking off, but we are people, and so it sort of stopped. But in between it, while we're all sat in our little, safe havens as such, we started talking about. Well, I got a phone call, and it was just hey, we know you're an actor. Obviously, this is from the guys who we know from the Corps. Our Corps is not as big as the U.S. Marine
Right.
Corps. Like our brothers that stateside. It's not, and brothers and sisters stateside. It's not that big, but we sort of kind of know each other quite well in the gang we're in. And they just said, "Oh, you're an actor. We're thinking of doing something about the guys." And that was my hook. That was it. I was just straight in there going, "Yeah, let's do something about our people." And from that point on, the only thing that mattered, and it did matter for me as an actor from that point onwards, was the story and what it's about. And it's weird you saying about the action sequences. In all honesty, from my background in the Corps and the other guys as well, that was second nature, and that wasn't the thing that
Mm.
I was fearing the most. That's a gift to us, in a way, because we've drilled and practiced, and that's second nature to us. We can do that in our sleep. It was the human story, which is
Yes.
far more in this stage of my career after like spending so long in the Corps. That was the important story because it's about our people and their challenges, and that to me that was the not only the hook but the challenge was that side rather than me getting back down and dirty doing what I darkly say used to enjoy. You know what I mean?
I do. I was most touched by your sequences there with the therapist, because a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
um, was interestingly true in some of the responses and some of the things. If you're a service member talking to a person who is a therapist or a counselor, sometimes there is a disconnect. And it's not intentional, it just kind of is. And some of the questions your character Andy asked, I thought were very poignant. And I think that, the sequence there at your daughter's funeral, I mean, that touched me very much. And the ending, which I won't spoil for folks, was quite a surprise. I was very surprised how it turned out. So, it's definitely, worth a watch. And I get what you're saying about the emotional journey. I don't mean to detract from the emotional journey of the characters by saying the action sequences are great, because they are, but I also, wanted to make a point that it does have some very grounded, real and visceral emotions in the film that pull me into the character and your work and many of the other Royal Marines.
I mean, Joe, like that from your background as well, you get it.
I do.
And even looking at our sort of the first reviews, Dan, that we've had come out, they're incredible. They're as you get reviews for any movie, it's come from people in it with very different viewpoints and what they look at it. But they've all been, I'd say, generally really, really strong. But it was the highs and lows, and some of the things that they've missed out on, veterans and people from that background, families really will get it because I mean, as an actor, you don't like looking at yourself on the screen, do you? At the end of the day, you're,
Yeah.
you're living in the moment, and then all of a sudden you've got this. You're in a cinema, and you're absolutely honking head is there on the screen, and you're going. Oh. But when we watched it, and the first time I watched it after the endurance test we had was at the premiere, and and I've been supporting it all the way through. But because of we've been partnership, I've never had the opportunity to actually see the film in full. So I watched it, and I have to admit, at the end of it, it was quite emotional, really emotional. And it got, let's say, it got a bit smoky in there, I think. But at the
Mhm.
end of it, I was very proud of what we got, and all those, those hidden things that we all know, and people
Mhm.
like us, and families that have worked and supported us doing on those operations, they get it. Whereas some of the reviewers didn't actually see that, but which in a way I'm happy because it's there's bits of it, enough of them. It's for everybody, but there's certain bits that our people, my community and your community will get.
Absolutely. There's a universal language that you and the team have put into the film, for veterans, for people who've, even had tertiary or secondary experiences. Primary for sure. There's folks who've been, on the front lines will totally get this. And, I'm so glad you guys stuck with it when many other people would have given up, or even other veterans would have thrown their hands up because the industry is very tough and people are very critical, and you've got to search for a while. It's not like you're pulling out a phone book and dialing somebody. You've got to go meet people and do pitches and do more pitches and more follow-ups and new edits, and it's never really done. Just like people say, writing is never really finished until the film is shot, and even on set, you're still doing rewriting. The film itself is not really finished until it goes to market, which is where you guys are at. And hopefully there'll be a sequel.
Well, no, that's Dan's partnership. But really, all that work and everything you said there, Joe. Really, I'm the storyteller, and yeah, I mean, I'm just a bootneck, a marine who just done what I was there at the right time, right place, right rig. What do you want me to do? And really, as an actor, that's what you want. You become what they want, the director wants. The people that the meat behind this whole project is Dan and James. The ones that lifted the ball, carried it onwards, got through to this sort of, like you say, that you would call it the final whistle in the game, but it's not. It's the after game. It's the post, and that the level of work, the intensity, the amount of it that they had to do was all done by two people. And you're in the movies, two
Yep.
people, two people doing every single piece of post. Well, bar, we have few, Dan will explain more, but as me as a spectator watching these guys work, they done everything. So even when I'm working on projects now, I'm going, yeah, who done your post? Two dudes. They go, no, no, there's hundreds of people involved with this. They're going, no, two blokes. I'm sorry. Yeah. And so Dan, you can, and you need to big it up because he does not say this. He just says, yeah, we done a bit. No, you need to explain how much you and James actually really dug in and done.
Mm.
Cheers, Tip. Yeah, no, I
Please do.
appreciate
Sorry.
that. Dropping us on that one. But yeah, it very much, we have had an awesome cast and crew with us this whole time, particularly crew on set. We were a small crew on set, as I'm sure Tip can attest to. It was, it was very we expanded and contracted where needed. So there were a lot of scenes where we would just have a really really tight crew of just the sound guy and then me and James. We were also, as well as co-directing, we were co-cinematographers as well. So and wear many hats. We had our assistant directors as well, who were incredible. They kind of just kept things moving along for us. But and we had our makeup artist there for most scenes. Outside of that, we very much again expanded and contracted as required. When it came to post production, it became a little bit of a lonely endeavor in many ways. Obviously, thankfully, I did. It was me and James working on it, so we actually co-edited. We had a set up collaborative editing system that we got going, so we can work together on the same sort of timeline, and it worked really well actually, and we were able to throw scenes around and play with stuff. And then we did the color grading ourselves. We've spent a lot of time in the past understanding color science and making sure we got the correct, calibrated monitors and things like that. It's all a whole other thing to think about. And then I did other visual effects, and James tends to do the graphics, the sort of more static graphics work, which works really well, because between us we can put those two things together and come out with some decent results. So yeah, that was another reason that post production did take a while for us, because we were having to do that, and alongside having other jobs as well. It was kind of a lot of work to bring it together, really. But that's the nature of what we were doing. We didn't have a huge amount of money behind us, and we didn't have a massive team that we could call on to make those things happen. So we just kind of did it ourselves. But I'm grateful for that experience, because, like I said before, we've done lots of little things, and we always get to do bits of all these little bits, but to bring it all together in one film and be able to really push ourselves and our creative sort of elements to the limit was a really cool experience from a filmmaker's perspective. And now also being able to have gone through that whole process and see all these parts of the chain, moving forward, hopefully that'll only strengthen us as creatives.
Mhm.
But I will mention we did have Mark Davies, who's an editor, come on board and give us some. He basically acted as our editing consultant. He watched our film, gave us advice on how we can make some changes and what we can do. It was a relatively short, in the grand scheme of things, contribution, but it was an incredible contribution to what we ended up with. He really gave us some great advice and help to bring make it just better than it already was. So we're really thankful for him for that.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. Is there any final takeaways you gentlemen have to share about your experience, or what you want, what your intent was with the audience and and their response to the film?
But I mean, well, I mean, for me, it's the when we done the pre one, and that's maybe after we done our trailer. No, we done a small trailer, and we put it out to crowdfunding with which the guys created, and I'm there for the story anyway. Remember, I was pulled in, I was hooked in with the rest of the gang, and then all of a sudden, when we seen the trailer, it was pushed out, and you guys seen it in the States as well. Went, whoa, what's this? And we filmed that in 20 hours. About 20 hours in total was the actual filming package. Then the guys went to work and produced, done the post on the actual filming that we'd done. That was 20 hours worth of people just going, what do you want me to do now? Oh, I'll just run with the boom. What do you want me to do? All right, you're now an acting part and you're doing this. So there was just a mega little motley crew of people that made that. And there was magic. And not only as an actor, but as somebody looking at, should we say, digital creatives or filmmakers, I realized that the team that I was working with and we were going to do, whatever we would do, because it was going to be at our people, it was going to be magical because they've got the talent, they've got that talent. And in the industry, it's quite unique. You can be trained and you can learn it, but it's got to be slightly overcoming and take over your life to be that. But these guys have got the talent from day one. So what we've done and what we've moved on, the journey we've been on is incredible. When we actually, before we started the actual filming the main film, we sat down and read the script. And this again is another bit of magic from the creative team. I was just going, this is believable. It's not, it's loosely on the journey that we started sort of, raising the funds on, but we'd landed it then. And then we all sat around as a cast, because it's quite a cast. After that was quite disparate, the filming, getting the different shots in and that. But we sat down as a whole cast and crew and we done a script read. And everyone was just pretty blown away then going, now I can see this. And you're starting to create images, create parts of your character. And watching other people just start living, the different characters. And it was magical for me because this is my first feature to be at that level doing. And I could see where the creation and how it was starting to move and the wonder was starting to be there. And at that point there, we went away, we've done everything and we've done all the filming. But during the filming, and the guys are so clever, but there's between me and, again, not giving anything away, between me and the character Cassius, there's like that a little parallel ride. Because as most Marines are, we're pretty rough diamonds before we join the corps or our corps, and then we get, we transform into this beast, the wonderful beasts, I think, and then you carry on, do what you do. But you don't start that way. You start with that little bit of intent in life to do and become something that is a Marine, and you move on and you pursue it wherever you are. You pursue it, and you realize what the outcomes are. When between me and Cassius, you see those completely different backgrounds, but you've got the parallel universe. And because we're human beings, we're so similar, but because of the turns and the knocks and maybe the enforced framework of our lives, we don't get the chance to break out of it. But then you're very like-minded, and you've also, which I think is very important, you've got a really strong moral compass, and you believe that things are right and what's wrong, and goodness and badness, things like that. And it was lovely because in the whole film we don't, not giving any work, Dan, we don't really cross paths that much, but we're in parallel. You know what I mean? But it's wonderful, and that came out of the writing just when we seen it, and when I seen the actual film for the first time, I just see how magic that relationship is in a bizarre way. But these are all things I learned, and it was part of the creative process. Give me them.
Thank you for sharing. That was very, very philosophical, psychological, and with a lot of marine input. Thank you, Tip. Dan, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so I think what I'd like to say really is that this whole film is, it's not just for veterans, it's not just or military people. It is for everyone. But obviously, creativity and art is subjective. Some people see some of the things in it, some people might not understand it so much. But the reception we have had so far has been incredible. And what I think one of the things that really shines for us is Tip's character Andy is he's going through stuff that is very much related to PTSD, but something we've kind of said about in a lot of these conversations, the interviews and things, is that the struggles he's going through aren't necessarily exclusive to military life. People can have mental health issues and struggles from all sorts of things. So we like to think and hope that people can sort of empathise with his character and understand and resonate of the fact that despite how tough he looks on the exterior, like you don't really ever know what's going on underneath the surface with someone. And that's kind of there's a bit of that message there with Tip's character. But I think what was really quite sort of interesting for us was actually the behind the scenes. Um, the behind the scenes situation was it was a very sort of military and veteran heavy production, and although again we did have an amazing civilian cast and crew as well, but what was great was seeing the sort of military camaraderie come back together, having people that would just be at the right place at the right time. They would just get on with the jobs. There was no dripping or moaning, although that's very unmilitary, I suppose. But um, but what was amazing for us is when a couple of times people came up to us and said, "Do you know what? Like, I really needed this to be with a group together making this film. Felt like that camaraderie and that brotherhood that I was missing since leaving the military, and it's like they're coming back together to create something that was bigger than ourselves, and all band together to do it. And the banter that was flowing on set, and all of those things did have an element of being back in a military environment. And I think that was we weren't really necessarily expecting that, but it kind of came naturally through the production. And to have people come and say that to us was really incredible for us from a filmmaker's perspective, because it's just really nice to feel that we were able to give people that experience through creating the film. And one more experience I think would be really nice to touch on is that the film does. Uh, there are a few quite deep emotive scenes in there where we had to go quite deep, and I know we pushed it quite hard sometimes, in particular with some of these scenes, to really get to the heart of the emotion behind it. And again, seeing everyone kind of come together when we were filming those scenes, give the actors like Tip the space to really find their how they wanted to deliver those scenes, and they're often quite quiet scenes and quite hard scenes to actually film and convey the emotion. But then I think, and I don't know about you, Tip, but from our perspective, watching it and being there, it has quite a cathartic effect of putting this stuff onto screen. When we're especially in the military, quite bad for bottling up emotions and not really talking about things. And being able to do that in a safe environment of a film set where you've got your oppos around you, and to be vulnerable in that way. I mean, props to the cast for being able to do that as well on camera. But then also, then when the camera stopped rolling, everyone just kind of come together, huddled around, and we just, took a moment between each other, check each other's okay, and just took a minute. And those moments were really special. I think they really kind of emphasize emphasized to us what this was all about in many ways, and to be a part of that experience was absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's kind of it really. It was just yeah, that was unexpected. I think we didn't know that was going to happen when we set out on this, but to when we went through it, it was just, yeah, something else.
That's
So I
great.
think for all that, all I know are that because we did have like it was sort of like stimulated and generated by former servicemen and former Royal Marines, and but we brought in sort of all the people that were involved. A lot of them were former veterans from different branches of the services, and then we had loads of creatives from the industry. So in a way, it wasn't a very big gang, but it was like a gang of miscreants from every corner. You know what I mean, with the creatives and that. And I think that the military humor, the creatives humor, and the mismatch. I think everybody took away something, and it bettered them and broke them out of their own little molds as well into a more, everyone realized that even though we come from all different backgrounds, the banter, the crack, the fun, the games, and also to be able to focus and get emotion and working as a team with all those different, like such a diverse community as such that we had, it worked really well, didn't it? It really worked with all that influence, like, and everyone, yeah, it's just an enjoyable experience and good memories for me.
Thanks for sharing that tip. That's great to hear about your mates and the creatives that you brought in that were able to integrate and get along so well. Appreciate having you guys here. Any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, last thing I would like to say is that in the US, we are going to have a limited theatrical release. And the best news is that we've just had it confirmed that active serving military and veterans will get free access to see the film in theatres, plus a free guest as well. They'll need to see show armed services identification when they arrive, and they can only have in-person tickets. But just so you know, that will be shown at Los Angeles at the Galaxy Mission Grove, and then the Studio Movie Grill at Dallas Spring Valley, Houston Pearland, Atlanta Marietta, and Orlando Sunset Walk. I apologize if I butchered any of those names, but yeah. So please get down there, watch the film, and let us know how you find it. Thank you. Cheers, Joel.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joe.